Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, and if this is your first time here, you're welcome to Style by Taiwo. In this video, I'll be teaching on how I made this beautiful two-piece. So this first video explains the top. If this is what you would like to learn, do not forget to like, subscribe, and also drop a beautiful comment. Let's get started. So for this dress, you will need about 3 yards of Ankara fabric. You need a lining, your zip, and pattern paper, and these are the basic fabric you'll be needing. So right here, I've gone ahead to drop that few measurement, and what I have here is my top full length. I have my half length, and I also, for this width, what I did was my highest measurement, which is my hip round, divided by 4, and I added extra 3 inches to it. So for you, if you know your hip is on the bigger side, you might not need to add extra 3 inches. You could just divide your hip round and use your exact hip round. So because I'm on the small side and I don't want it looking too fitted, I wanted a bit space. So what I want to do now is the upper part. So I'm just going to go ahead to mark out my neck width. So for my neck width, I'll be using 3 inches. So after marking out my neck width, the next thing I want to do is my chest, my shoulder length. So I'll mark my shoulder length and come down from that line by 1.5 inches. Then I'll go ahead to use my pattern ruler to connect it. So after this, from the line I slanted, I want to go ahead to come down by 7 inches from my chest line. So I'll just want to go ahead, mark out my lines and ensure that my lines are marked out correctly, and after which I'll use my pattern ruler to connect the lines. So after connecting these lines and ensuring that I have marked out correctly, the next thing I want to do is my arm cycle. So I'll get the midpoint there, come out, I'll just want to come out by half an inch, use my pattern ruler, connect. So after the next thing I'm going to do is my bust round divided by 4. I'll go ahead to mark it and use my curved pattern ruler to connect the line. So at this point, I feel we are almost done with the up part. So what is left is our neck. So for this neck, I would just want to go to complete the neck. So for this neck, I would just want to go ahead to come down by 1.5 inches because the neck is not going to come down much. After coming down that way, then I'll use my pattern ruler to connect the line. So at this point, we are done with the upper part. For this top, I'm not going to be adding that, but if you want to add that, you could go ahead to add that to yours. Especially if you're on the plus size or if you have a bigger bust, you might not really want to do too much, maybe just a half inches on both sides for the that is fine. So I've gone ahead here to mark out my waist round divided by 4, and I went ahead to connect to my bust point I went ahead to connect to the armhole side. And what next I'm just going to do, I'll just go ahead to exhaust this line on my full length because that's what I'm going to be using, and I connected to my waistline. So at this point we are almost done, so I'll come up there by 2.5 inches and curve down with my pattern ruler. So I'll say at this point we are done with our pattern because I'll be using this pattern paper for both the front and the back, and I just remembered I did not remember to add 1 inches for zip allowance. So there's still no problem. If you follow me to this point, don't worry, I'm just going to show you how you just add it to your fabric. So right here, the last thing we're going to do, from that point I have there, I'm just going to come in and go ahead to slant to my waistline. So for that part, you could do 2.5 or 3 inches. It depends on how open you want it to be from the center front. It could go in by 2.5 or 3 inches. So it depends on how open you want it to be. And just go ahead to slant it. So after this, the next thing we are doing is to cut out. So right here, I'm done cutting out, and one thing you should notice that the middle thing we did at the front, the midpoint, I did not cut it out. So this is my back part, and I went ahead to cut it on fold. I added half inches allowance round, and for my side, I added about 1 inches allowance, which I'm going to use for my joining sewing allowance, and also for the down, I added 1 inches allowance. So this is what my back look like. I did it on fold. So now the next thing I want to do now is to cut this part out and go ahead to cut out for the front. So the difference between our front pattern is that our front pattern we're going to be adding zip. Remember, we're supposed to add about 1 inches for our zip part. So this is my front. I went ahead to cut out round. So if you notice for this other part, I added 1 inches and half inches round. Then this is the zip part, which I also went ahead to add 1 inch. So just take note of how I cut this part out, and you cut your front like that. So what I've done right now is that I've gone ahead to cut out to my lining. Repeat the same process for the lining. I also went ahead to use my clothes gum for it. So I did not just cut out to the front. I also repeated same process for the back with my pattern paper. I cut out to the lining, gum it with my clothes gum. So after this, now what I'm going to do first is to sew my zip to the front part. So this zip allowance that we have, I'm just going to go ahead, get my zip and sew on it. Then after sewing my zip on it, what I'm going to do next is to use my lining to turn it over. So I'll first go to my sewing machine. So when sewing, you're going to bring the zip up to the end part so that the extra allowance will just be at the top part. So let's go to our sewing machine and go ahead to sew our zip to our front fabric. So I've done that here, and if you notice the extra zip that I had, I extend it was to the neck part that I left it. So what I'll just do now is to open it just as you've seen me do. And what I want to do is to sew my lining to it. So I just want to go ahead, get my lining and place on this and go ahead to sew around. So I'll just go ahead, place it and also show you how you should sew it round. So first of all, I'm picking the left side. I will place it just as you can see me do here and go ahead and sew round. So I'll just use this part to show you how you should do this. So let me just turn over to this part that is a bit clear. So just as you see here, you sew on top here. Then after sewing from there, you go ahead, sew to the neckline. Then you will leave the armhole, but sew the arm, the sides, this other part and also the down part. So yeah, we'll just go to our sewing machine and sew that round. You also want to repeat that for both sides. So this is our back. So I also want to go ahead, place my back, place the lining on it, just go ahead, sew the neck, leave the shoulder parts, then sew the armhole, sew the side and also go ahead to sew the down part. So this is what I have after sewing. I'm going ahead to sew my zip and turn over. So for the side, I did not sew mine because I saw I was having shortage of this and then did not want it to be too tight on me. So the next thing I want to do now is my shoulder part. So I've gone ahead to place the front on the back and I'll go ahead to turn over just as you see me do, like this. You go ahead, turn over the shoulder length just like this, and you after turning it over, you sew by 1/2 inches and you do this for both sides. So after that, when I'm done with it at this point, so I just want to go ahead to join by 1/2 inches on both sides or whatever allowance you left. So the next thing we are moving to now is our sleeve. So for the sleeve, for the width, I've gone ahead to cut out, and for the width, what I got, I measured my round armhole and I used that for the width. So I have my vertical measurement also marked out here, and I also marked out my full sleeve length. This last line that I marked out here is the wrist, and I added about 6 inches for the extra flare. So I have my bicep measurement, my elbow measurement. So for this, from the wrist down, if you want your sleeve to cover your arm, you could go, or you measure how long you want it to be from the arm. But if you don't want it to go far, you could also measure. And so the next thing I'm doing now, so from my center sleeve, I'll just go ahead to come in by 3.5 inches, and after coming in, I'll just go ahead to curve it down. So the next thing we want to do now is on our elbow. We're going to measure out our elbow divided by 2. Whatever we have, we're going to mark it out and connect it to. So before connecting, I'll just want to ensure that I don't connect it anyhow. So I'm going to get my dress and measure my armhole round. So whatever I have, I'm going to mark it out. So after marking it out, what I will also go ahead to do is to mark out my elbow and also mark out my wrist. Use my pattern ruler, connect the lines together. So I've gone ahead now to mark them out, and I'll just connect with my pattern ruler right here. So when marking out, don't also forget to add your sewing allowance. So at this point, when I'm done marking out, next thing is the down flare. So I'm not going to be using everything here. I went ahead to mark 4 inches, which is what I'm going to be using. And for the after 4 inches, the width I'm going to be using 7 inches, and I had to come down a bit by 1 inch for folding allowance. Then I went ahead to connect to my wrist. So this is what our sleeve is going to be like. So after this now, I just want to go ahead, cut out, and after cutting out, I will go ahead to sew to my fabric. Before sewing to my fabric, I will hem and go to my fabric, and at this point, this is the last part of this tutorial. So the next part is the skirt tutorial, and I'll be dropping it soon. So don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and also please don't forget to drop a beautiful comment. Thank you for watching.